Yes, absolutely. Well, that was another point also for which drew me towards the United States was that we have these 3 years after your PhD. You can work for 3 years basically with the student visa, which is a very motivating thing. I think even though if somebody has to go back, they still get the 3 years of US work experience. That is, I mean, I wouldn't think that's bad at all. So that's definitely one of the another motivation that draws a lot of people towards this country, I would say.
Hello everyone, welcome to the PhD Talk Show by Biopatrika. So today we have Dr. Maharshi Dey with us, who is working in an industry named UbiQD in Los Alamos in the US. So welcome Dr. Maharshi Dey. So could you briefly tell us about yourself, your background, your academic background, and what you're currently doing in the US?
Yes, thanks, Rohitesh, for the wonderful introduction, and thanks for having me here. It's my pleasure to be in this talk show. Um, yes, I'm Maharshi Dey. I work currently at UbiQD in Los Alamos, New Mexico, in the US. And currently, I'm working with quantum dot nanomaterials. And by profession, I am a material scientist. I got my PhD in material science in December of 2022. So it's been about a year, and ever since I've been working for this company in Los Alamos.
So because you have stepped ahead and done PhD in the US, so next question, logical question is what was your motivation behind doing the PhD, and why only the US?
Well, yes, on that note, I would like to mention that when I was applying for PhD and I was thinking about these options for PhD, I was looking into opportunities where, I can go for industry jobs after my PhD. So I was always intrigued by the opportunities that we get as a PhD in the industry. So when I was applying, I saw, of course, as we all know, this US is the land of opportunities. So that there's a lot of Fortune 500 companies which have their headquarters in the US. So that was always in my mind that I wanted to go for industry after my PhD. So then, of course, for that reason, I think US looked very motivating for me. So I went ahead and applied for different universities all over the country.
That's interesting. Great. So because there are some advantages which PhD students get in terms of OPT. So do you see that in coming time or in future the immigration policies are going to change and that could affect how the PhD students are going to how international PhD students are going to work in the US, or are they going to find better opportunities, or opportunities are going to lower up? So what is your uh, opinion on that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, that was another point also for which drew me towards the United States was that we have these 3 years after your PhD. You can work for 3 years basically with your student visa, which is a very motivating thing. I think even though if somebody has to go back, they still get the 3 years of US work experience. That is, I mean, I wouldn't think that's bad at all. So that's definitely one of the another motivation that draws a lot of people towards this country, I would say. And look, for the immigration policy, yes, they definitely change over time because of so many reasons. But this most of the time this doesn't come as a surprise package. Like I don't think when I was applying for these PhD positions, I was looking into the immigration policies also. What can I do after 3 years? Would I have to come back, or there are other opportunities? Even if I have to come back, let's say, that's like I was mentioning, it's still you have that PhD from the US, from a esteemed university, and then you from a good group if you have a PhD, and then you have 3 years of experience, and then you go back to your home country. Or if you even have to apply for different parts of the world, I would definitely think you would have an edge on top of the other candidates that have got a PhD from somewhere else. I think getting a PhD from a good university always would count. And on top of that, if you can plan ahead, you know that this is happening, this is the immigration policies, then I would always suggest people, and I have been doing that since day one here too. I've been looking into the opportunities. Okay, well, what should I do to get ahead of the curve? Being able to present your work, talking to the lawyers, the immigration lawyers. You can talk to them for free for 15 minutes consultation for in your first year, second year. Where are you going to? What do they need? Learn about these on the website. There's lots of content on YouTube. People talking about immigrations a lot. There, you can add them on your LinkedIn. Check their channels on YouTube. You would learn a lot. And then if you can prepare your mind, okay, this is what I'm going to do on my second year. This is my step on my third year. If you can plan it ahead, I think it's not that tough. And it's, yes, it is tough, but with your PhD, you're already in the top 2% of the world who has a PhD, right? And you're belonging to that population. So that gives you an edge already. So if you plan ahead, I think it is manageable. And at least for me right now, I did not get into any immigration trouble, and I'm not expecting that anytime soon.
That's great. That's great. Nice. So like, so basically, like I saw that you did internship during your PhD. So like, what do you think? What was the process? How can you share this with your viewers? Like, what was the process of applying for internship, and did it help in getting the current role in the industry?
It definitely did. I cannot deny at all. I was one of the lucky ones to get a internship in a good company. I worked for 3M as an intern.
Yeah.
And then at the point, if you know, but 3M exists in every different country, even many places in India. So it's a multinational company. So that definitely gave me an edge. When I was interviewing for different companies, they were asking me about my experience at 3M. The name definitely carried its weight, and I could feel that every time. During my application, I took it as a almost like a practice session, I would say. Like, you actually apply for these jobs like you are doing for a full-time job. You make sure that you have your cover letter well, you have the resume checked by career mentors. There's a lot of career mentors on LinkedIn, YouTube again. These are free sources. You can always use them, and they talk about how you should make your resumes. And even if you have
Yes.
to pay a couple of dollars for like making your premium account on LinkedIn or something. I think those are helpful in the long run. You get to connect with so many people, and there are people who have gone to the industry. Why don't we talk to them? You can just talk to them for like a 10-minute quick call. And I think most of the times I have approached people, they're like, yeah, Maharshi, why not? Let's talk tomorrow for a 10-minute call. They give you suggestions. You can write them down, and then also these might help you to get referrals in different companies.
Oh, nice.
Those
That's
help
a
a
very
lot.
good advice.
And I was doing that. I was applying for multiple jobs. I think hundreds of jobs when I was applying for my internship, and 3M was one of them. I applied for a couple of positions at 3M also as an intern. And those help. I think those free resources that you get today on the internet is very valuable. If you can plan your moves ahead, it helps for sure.
That's a very valuable advice. So like you did do internship, but going into industry is another like big task because we have to go through interviews and like what advice would you give to youngsters or those planning to sort of apply for industry after PhD in the US in terms of how should they approach interviews?
Well, I think that's one of my favorite questions, how to approach interviews, because I feel I had talked with so many people during before applying for my internship. And then during my full-time job, I was talking to so many people, like day in, day out. I was contacting people, getting on those informational interviews, like quick calls I was talking about. You get all those opportunities. And some of the good learnings that I got, I try to forward them to other people also when they ask me about this. So it turns out to be one of my favorite question, actually. I think they always mentioned one thing is, you should market yourself as a product. You are a product coming out in the market, a new product coming out, and then your resume is basically like a flyer. You're setting up for this product that's coming out in the market. Your resume should talk about the quantitative skills. You should not just say, I'm a good researcher, or uh, uh, I can work for long hours. These kind of things, everybody can write. It's very qualitative. But if you say, okay, I am a creative researcher, who led, my work led to these many publications or a patent or something, the impact you make is definitely what you should show in that flyer or the resume that I'm talking about. And other than that, making good connections, of course, like LinkedIn connections. I cannot stress on that anymore. It's like you have to make good connections. The world runs on connections today. It's a informational era. You have to know where your connections are. You have to make good connections. They may give you good referrals later on, or a letter of recommendation if you have worked with them. All these count towards a good profile. And then other than that, being aware of what's going on. If there's a good position in a company you want to work for, then you should not miss the deadline at all. I've heard so many people, they would think, okay, I'll apply tomorrow or something, and then all of a sudden there's like 164 applicants already. You don't want to miss the curve. People are reviewing now. I do that for my company also, where I review others profiles, and I can tell you for sure, right after the applications come in, you're already reviewing. Like, people start already reviewing this. Then why don't you be the first 10 to apply rather than being the last 10, and being at the above everyone else in the list? There's options to do that, right? And I think being ahead of the curve is very important for everything in this
That's a very
competitive world.
insightful. Yes, definitely. Uh, so like because you mentioned that publications and patents, so like that was my another question. Like, what skills from your PhD per se helped you in applying for the job, and what things from your PhD you took and you are currently applying in your current role? So my next question would be, what is your current role in the company? But before that, let's try to understand like what are the transferable skills from your PhD?
Look, I think technical skills as a PhD, like I was mentioning, you belong to the 2% who has a PhD globally, right?
Yes,
You are supposed to have good knowledge. You're master of what you did. Your thesis comes out as the person who did it. Most of the times nobody else goes, towards that circle. You're technically very strong. So that is not something that people doubt most of the times. Yeah, yes, there would be technical questions, but I think the biggest factor that gives an edge to you is when your communication skills are good. You
yes.
should be able to. That's a very beneficial, and there's a lot of TED Talks out there for free also who talk about all this. I've come across so many TED Talks of these experts mentioning that over and over again, that technical skills can be the strongest, but unless you have a good communication skills, you're probably lagging behind. If people are saying, sorry, what was that? Excuse me, can you please repeat? You should know these are the social cues. You should know you have to go back home, and you have to know how should I, say this word? How should I say it so that people understand? What changes should I make? These are social cues. You should be able to find those and then develop yourself personally. So these transferable skills like communication, able to speak, public speaking, writing, all these you can transfer from a PhD to the industry or any job at all. Your communication should be strong. I think that's one of the key skills everybody should have, going towards the job. Now, answering to your second question about my roles, currently I'm working as a scientist, senior scientist at my company, and here I'm developing. I'm doing the R&D, research and development of different products. We have a product line like solar windows, agricultural films, and where we are deploying quantum dots, these fascinating nanomaterials, which actually won the Nobel Prize just a couple of months ago in chemistry. And with these materials, what we are doing is we are deploying them in different products and then actually selling them. So my role is I have a team member in my team also whom I have to supervise, and together we make these R&D. We do the R&D of these products, and then creating new product lines, new technologies. Talking about new technologies, or actually developing the current technologies for a new generation product, are things that me and my team does.
That's that's interesting. So you have a variety of work that you could do in current role. That is
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So like another question, like usually like after PhD, many students they want to sort of opt for a postdoc rather than an industry because they see themselves more doing academic work in academia rather than going into industry. So like what was your motivation behind opting for industry rather than academia?
Yeah, I think I was always motivated to go for industry. First of all, because I had some industry experience back in India before I moved out to the US.
Oh,
That
nice.
motivated me. And then I had an experience of a year and a half before I moved out here. And then another point was, I think I like to do research where it's like translational research, where you actually work on R&D for a product that's actually coming out in a couple of years. If I know that my friends or my family is able to use a product that's available in the supermarket or somewhere else, they're using it at home, I think that motivates me quite a bit, rather than just writing papers or patents. Don't get me wrong, those are absolutely good. I mean, I still do that and I love doing that. All right, writing patents or papers, those are good. But still, actually coming out with a product that people are using is probably very, very motivational for me. I think that was always motivating me to go for industry. And other than that, there's other factors also. Like most of the times, if you compare position in the industry and academia, you might see higher salaries in the industry also. So those kind of things definitely was in my back of my mind that if I get a industry position, I might not even go for a postdoc. So I jumped out of my PhD right out after my graduation. I went for the industry jobs, and I was heavily applying for industry jobs, like I mentioned also.
Yes.
So postdocs in that ratio was very, very less. I did apply for postdocs. I got a couple of opportunities too, but I think industry was what I was aiming for from day
Yes.
one.
Because there is work-life balance, there is better standard of living, so there are many perks of going to the PS compared to it. Like another
Yeah.
question, like how does your day look or a week look like in your current role?
I think I'm very lucky that my day looks absolutely good every day, most of the time, because I'm working for this company and with this role that I have, I'm very happy with this role. I think it's a 9 to 5 job. Most of the time, I have to get into the lab at 9 and then get out at 5. Yes, of course, it's a smaller company in comparison to the other big guys out there, but still, the thing is like sometimes you might have to stay a little longer, which is very rare for me, but sometimes I might have to stay with, because like with research, experiments can run a little longer, and then of course if you have to monitor that, you have to, which sometimes is the case, but it's very rare. I think most of the time it's 9 to 5. I get in, start my experiments, work with my teammate, like I was saying, supervise him, make sure we are on the same page with what we are doing. Then also we have to work with other teammates, like the analysis team or the chemists that are out there doing reactions and stuff. So we have to communicate with them, make sure we are on the same page of like what we're trying to do and stuff like that. So there's all these stuff, working together in teams and stuff is very, very important, I think, for my
Oh,
role.
nice. So like you mentioned that your role is from 9 to 5 most of the days, not all. But like after 5, do you get free time to follow hobbies or pursue hobbies or like do some recreational activities which help you relax your mind? So how do you spend rest of the time?
Absolutely, yes. I think that's a very key factor. You have to have a good work-life balance, especially when you're in a stressful situation like, in research. It can be stressful, right? You're trying to find something. Most of the times you're running experiments with failure for days and months, and it could be even years. So you have to make sure that you are not stressed out. You have to have that work-life balance. So what I do, yes, I come out after 5. I usually just like to do follow my hobbies. Like I still play a lot of games like tennis, pickleball, ping pong. I like to play volleyball also. Sometimes, if there's opportunity, I still play cricket with my buddies. So those are things that definitely motivates me. And the other things I do is I play my guitar once in a while when I get the opportunities. I work out every alternate day, or sometimes even every day I go in, and if I don't have anything to do, I'll just hit the gym and work out for a bit. And I think those are things that keeps my stress level low, and also it's a work life balance that I get for sure. And apart from everything, calling my family, making sure they are all good is definitely
Yes,
another
that's
task
important.
I make sure to do every day.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. So like
Mhm.
my last question would be like, what advice would you give to youngsters who are planning to apply for PhD to the US?
Yes, for PhD in the US, I know as an international student from most of the countries, the biggest factor that comes into play is the funding situation. You want to have a position where your funding is stable. You don't want to have a position where you get a funding for 1 year or a semester or two, and then you don't have funding down the line. Then even if you like your program, even if you're enjoying, you might have to come back because most of the times you cannot fund your PhD by yourself. And I would not suggest doing that either because grad schools are most of the time, at least in the US, I don't know about the other countries, but at least in the US, most of the time it's just free. I have hardly ever come across anybody who says that they are paying for their PhD. So,
Yes.
you find your good funding. And secondly, once your funding is sorted out, you should go for what you like to do. That's where your shortlist should come in. You should find out that, okay, these are the things that motivates me, because down the line you have to work on that field for the rest of your career. Who knows, unless you can change your field. Most of the time you have to pursue that as a career for the rest of your life. So you have to make sure that you're comfortable with that. Of course, like, you have to love that field, you have to be passionate about that. And then
Okay.
that those questions come in. If your funding is sorted out, then make sure you're passionate about what you're going for, because that is what you'll be expert in the rest of your life. So make sure you do that. And then other than that, of course, some other factors that I did not consider was like place where you live, where you're going for, and then all the other financial. If you're going for a big city, then of course you won't be able to save as much as smaller suburbs. If you go for suburb colleges, then you're probably going to save more, and you would be able to probably send money to your home, and all those are, and have a better standard of living is also a possibility.
Yes.
So those factors can come in, but definitely funding is the number one without being said. That should be the number one.
So I think that's all. Thank you, Dr. Maharshi Dey. I hope our viewers enjoyed our discussion and they will benefit from our discussion and your experience in the US and your current role in UbiQD. So I hope that everybody enjoyed the show and thank you for coming on the show. I hope you had a great time and all the best for your future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Rohitej. It was my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me. It was nice talking to you, and hope you do good in your life too for the rest of the time. Thank you.